1947 by my dad, Bob Holter. He bought the camera in celebration of the arrival of the little boy, John Robert Holter, finally a son after 3 little girls. These scenes of Esther Holter coming out the front door of the house show her with the baby, and that is myself, little Judy. And in a few moments we see Dad holding John in the side yard. Dad enjoyed taking the movies, and this first roll of black and white also included some indoor shots. Now we have little Janet Kathleen coming down the steps and smiling for the camera, and both little sisters walking together. Janet is about 4 years old, and I am about 1.5 years 2.5 during these movies. We are joined by our older sister Barbara, who's not quite 10 years old in these movies, and by some neighbor children. And you can be sure to notice that for the most part the little girls are all dressed in dresses rather than slacks. These movies were shot at the house at 1708 West Augusta, where the Holter family had lived from the early 1900s on. Here the family is dressed up, I suppose, on our way to church. It's a spring day, but cold enough to have on our wool coats. Esther at this time, my mom, is about 37 years old, I believe. Probably 36, almost 37. We had a swing in the backyard, which Janet demonstrates her skills, and here's Barbara doing her famous jumping rope routine. For this first roll, Dad mostly did shots outdoors, and Mom looks a little embarrassed there, like she's not real happy. Here's Barbara. She's wearing her little green wool wraparound coat, which was eventually passed on to Janet and me. And in the spring, we would go down to Riverside State Park and pick a few buttercups a few times. Our family entertainment centered in the neighborhood with these lovely little neighbor children. I don't know their names, but obviously we have had a good time playing, and Dad is enjoying doing all these shots of the family. Here are these little ragamuffins all ready to pose for the camera. Here we're dressed up, so I suspect it might be Easter this time of the year. Because here's Mother in front of St. Joseph's Church, and they had a family portrait taken of us indoors, of which there are many copies, and it's also in the family history book. Next we see some shots of a whole bunch of little girls celebrating Janet's 4th birthday. Janet is in the dark colored dress. I think it was a red dress. And the rest of us are just all lined up to smile and to play Ring Around the Rosie.
Ring a roses, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down.
Notice the bow in my hair there. I'm to the right of Janet. Somehow, with this curly dark hair, Mother tried to fix it, but it seems like for me the bow is always falling down into my face.
Ring a roses, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down.
Next we move inside to the birthday cake. And Janet's cake is on Mom's Fostoria cake plate, which is a family heirloom. We believe Mom got it in the late 1930s because from then on, everybody has a birthday cake on that Fostoria plate. And we still have it to this day in 2016, and it gets passed around and used for birthdays. Now this is Easter Sunday, 1947, and we are visited by our great uncle, Dr. Henry L. Holter. He was a dentist, and we affectionately called him Uncle Doc. He was a single man, divorced, who lived in downtown Spokane, and so he joined the family for every holiday. He was one of the younger brothers of our grandfather, Ole Holter. And Uncle Doc's story is told in the family history as well. Here's Barbara, all dressed up with her coat and Easter bonnet, and her lovely little open-toed shoes. Uncle Doc visited us at holidays, as I said, and he always had his fragrant cigar, which he not only smoked outside but also inside the house. It was quite memorable. Later that spring or early summer, we went on a picnic to Audubon Park in North Spokane, just off Northwest Boulevard. Mother, it's the first time we remember Mother not wearing a dress. She had some sort of a slacks outfit on. And looks like little John is getting into the pickles, so she has to scold him a little bit. Again, we're photographed doing our little swinging routines, but obviously I haven't learned how to pump yet. Baby John's first birthday is also the first color roll, and you can see that Barbara has been pushing him in that cute little wooden stroller, which I wonder if Dad made that because he was very talented with woodworking.
If I never have a cent, I'll be as rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street.
So here we are again in the backyard of this house. on Augusta, and little John's learning to walk. Esther's pretty happily holding him, and you can see that even though she's in her 30s, she's got quite a bit of gray hair, which was passed on to the rest of us. Janet is going to be helpful here and hold him up while he practices walking. And we enjoy posing for the camera. This must be a little neighbor girl, I'm not sure who that is. A few cautious steps. And he's down on his knees. So this has to be a different day since he's got different clothes on, and that's probably his little birthday present, a nice little red and green truck. Oh, we can see that his walking skills have improved significantly. And the house is for sale because the family is getting ready to move down closer to the church in Spokane. Whoops. Here's the birthday cake on a wobbly little red table. That's the birthday tradition of letting the 1-year-old sample the frosting. How sweet. Now, here's Barbara. This is her 10th birthday, and she has a lovely, looks like chiffon cake on the cake plate, and a lovely little green print dress that was also passed on to Janet and me. So the next roll shows us on a different sidewalk, and Mother standing in front of the new house at 1824 West Malin. This house was significantly bigger, and it is the house that we essentially grew up in. And Mom lived there for the rest of her life. We'll have future scenes with spring scenes and great winter scenes with lots of snow. This is the east side of the house. There's a fenced backyard, a beautiful grapevine, which I think we might have eaten some of the grapes. The garage is in the back of the house, and a little cedar tree which grew significantly over the years. And here we have the ever popular, I believe it's a 1947 Dodge, and it was light blue in color. So, John's grown a little bit. He's learned to sit on the trike. Dad's having a cigarette and posing for the camera. This is the back door of the house. There was a small back porch, and that window with the curtains is the kitchen, and the small window is a pantry. So it was a wonderful backyard that we'll see more scenes of in the future. as we follow along. And of course, if the Goodyear blimp is flying over your backyard in Spokane, you must run and get your movie camera, because it was a very unique experience to see the blimp fly over Spokane in 1947. Here are a few additional scenes of John when he's a little older that summer and has mastered his walking skills better. Cute little boy. This is me, Judith Holter, smiling for the camera. Baby John again. And Janet and neighbor kids in the background. And of course, as the weather gets warmer, we have to strip down to more comfortable clothing. But do notice that he has on the wonderful high-top shoes that children wore to keep their ankles from swaying back and forth. Here's Dad and John, and I'm off to the side. Now, these are wonderful scenes of Montana for our summer vacation. We drove to Montana, which was where Mother was born and grew up. These scenes are at the southern edge of Flathead Lake, south of Kalispell, Montana, and in the good old summertime. Show the beautiful scenery and the Rocky Mountains in the background.
In the good old summertime, for wandering in the park, the good old summertime for kissing in the dark, strolling through.
On the west side of Flathead Lake is a small town named Somers, Somers, which is where Mother's older sister, Mary Mangone Zanon, lived, and her husband, Uncle Pete, worked in a sawmill there. So this was obviously the first stop on the trip. And there is Mother and holding baby John, and these were some friends. That's Aunt Mary holding the daughter of some friends from Italy. Here's a little overview of the town of Somers, Montana. Mom's parents, George and Ida Mengen, homesteaded on this property along the North Fork of the Flathead River when they got married in 1905. From one side of the ranch you could see Tea Kettle Mountain, and from the other side Columbia Mountain. And in between those two, Highway 2 ran into West Glacier and up into Glacier National Park. This is the road that you drove into the ranch from Highway 2 just after you crossed the river. These were the farmlands that were planted with hay and oats and various other grain crops. The property was on 2 levels. This was called down below, and a little creek ran through the property on its way to the Flathead River. This creek was loaded with trout, and there are beautiful scenes. Fishing was enjoyed all along that creek on the property.
Where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the sky.
And here's the river, which
the red man was pressed
is at the edge of the property, the western edge of the property.
To the banks of Red River, where seldom if ever their flickering campfires burn.
Notice the beautiful color that this 1947 film has. It just seems to be exceptional. And that's the bridge from the town of Columbia Falls across the river and towards Glacier Park. Now here's the family coming home from church on Sunday. In the center we have Ida Mengen, my grandmother, and to her right we have mom's sister Virginia Dorothy Mengen. Here's Ida. She came from Austria to Montana in 1905 and married George, who had been here for quite a few years. Virginia is the third daughter and was home from the Army, in between stints in the Army at that time. George Mengen, with the hat, is using his cane to point out something to his cousin Gus Mengen. And again, now you see our beautiful Dodge car in full living color. George was quite a bit older than Ida, and here we see that creek, and they had a few boards going across to get to the other side. They also had a little grist mill there. I think they did something with their grain. I'm not sure what they did. But here's Dad enjoying casting his hook into the creek, and in a minute he'll be pulling out some trout.
Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't fence
I'm sure Grandma probably fried those up when we had them for supper that day. Grandma cooked on a wood stove. The house had running water, cold water in the kitchen, but other than that, outdoor plumbing and outhouse. Here's Janet and myself. With Aunt Virginia, we were walking to feed the chickens, and here's Grandpa George with, oh, look, that's a nice sized trout that he has pulled out. This is the barn. Doesn't it look like it might be ready to blow over in the next wind? Well, they had a couple of horses at first, and then they had a few cattle. That was just a little shot of Barbara there. So all that property was down below, and up on the hill was the farmhouse, which Grandpa built in 1912. So besides Aunt Mary and Mom, or Mother Esther, there was a boy named John, Uncle John. He lived his entire life on the ranch, took over the farming. When, after Grandpa could no longer do it, some more outdoor scenes on the creek. And the barn cats, they were skinny and scary, and they would not let us pet them. But they came around at milking time for sure. On Sundays, the family gathered and had a nice big dinner that Grandma made, and then on the stood on the back porch.
On my
This
cayuse,
is
let me
Mom's
wander
youngest
over
sister,
yonder till I
Rosalie's
see the mountains
husband,
rise.
George Bechtold, doing his
I
little
wanna ride to the ridge
stint
where
of
west
fishing in the creek.
commences and
George
gaze
was
at the
from
moon
Butte,
until I
Montana.
lose my senses. I can't look at
He and
harbors
Rosalie
and I
lived
can't
there
stand
during their
fences.
marriage, and she died
Don't
quite
fence
young,
me
I believe at the age in her early 30s, of breast cancer. So we don't have any movies of her. Here's Dad again, pulling more fish out. And that's George again. Martin City was a boom town that was built east of Columbia Falls, Montana. It was part of the headquarters for the building of Hungry Horse Dam. So there was quite a bit of small housing. You can see they don't even have paved roads yet. And there are the houses where the workers lived while Hungry Horse Dam was being built. It's a huge concrete dam, smaller than Hoover Dam, but a large project for northwestern Montana. More scenes of either the river or the lake. This looks like the river, and perhaps we are on our way to visit other relatives who homesteaded nearby. The Great Northern Railroad ran through the town of Whitefish and Columbia Falls, and then over to West Glacier and farther east.
A sentimental journey to renew old memories.
And here are some memorable scenes of the lumber mill. I'm not sure if this is in Summers or Columbia Falls, but one of those, both places had lumber mills. And as you can see from the background, there was a plentiful supply of trees to supply lumber for building. The next scenes are at the farm of Mother's cousin Lena Mangone, who married a man named Otto Cavalar, who was also from Austria. They had 2 sons, and this shows their younger son riding the tractor with his dad.
That takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam? Gotta take that sentimental journey. Sentimental journey home.
So when they got back to the farm, of course they had to get a few more shots of the trout swimming in the creek. And a few scenes on the way home while driving, probably on Highway US 2 back to Spokane. At the end of this roll are just a few frames of Janet and me dressed up in what looks like little summer dresses and bonnets, standing in front of our house. chubby cheeks, and sweet smile. Now it's Christmas 1947, and it looks like we have already ripped open all of our presents. The tree always stood in that corner of the living room, towards the front of the room, by the front windows. Barbara's in her quilted bathrobe, and I am trying to show my little brother how to operate this top. A little tricky on a carpet, I would say. Janet is in a beautiful little pink crocheted dress that was just adorable on her. And in order to do these indoor scenes in color, Dad set up large floodlights that made enough light inside the room for him to get this wonderful photography. Again, notice we little girls are in our skirts and blouses, no jeans or t-shirts. That's a little play washing machine that we would get. It had a little agitator. Hand cranked, of course, no batteries. Usually every Christmas we each got a new dress, and Janet's trying hers on. It's got a few pins in it, I guess. Beautiful little plaid fabric. And I am looking at a new book. Looks like it's a golden book. Can't read the title. So we have a few paper dolls, fun to cut out and play with. Mother's folding up the gift wrap to save it for future use. And this must be evening now. John's in his little pajamas, and he's got his little wheeled turning thing, pull toy that he can put things on and pull, and then it turns around. And here we are lined up in our sweet little pajamas. Janet's got a little doll. He's got his candy cane. I'm holding something. And Barbara's still dressed up. She doesn't have to go to bed so early. Here's John, also known as Butch, in his beautiful radio flyer wagon. Oh, but that candy cane must be dessert. And watercolor paints. What a treat to be able to paint. Sometimes we had books that we just painted with water and the color came out. So notice the little pajamas with the feet. We needed to stay warm. And Barbara got that beautiful doll. Maybe comparable to what an American Girl doll is now. Here's Dad. He's ready for bed too. I think he's got a cigarette over his ear there. Something. And a final scene of the wonderful Christmas gifts. In 1947 and 48, Dad made several trips with some of the Holter relatives to visit other relatives in Seattle and Portland. Here's Uncle Doc. and his sister-in-law, Eunice Hardin Holter, who was married to Doc's brother, Uncle Charlie, and they must have gone with Dad to this. I believe these scenes are along the Columbia River, maybe where they crossed at Advantage. Then they're in Seattle, and this is Aunt Lil, actually Dad's aunt, who was born in 1899, the youngest of the 12 children in the Holter family. She was a stylish career woman who worked for the phone company. Then there are a few scenes with Uncle Doc and a man that I believe is our grandfather Ole's cousin, Gus Holter. And I believed he lived in Puyallup or Sumner, somewhere around there. Obviously it's springtime, and then we have a few scenes of Mount Rainier in the distance, which is easily seen from both Puyallup and Sumner. Other members of the extended Holter family includes Dad's niece, Mary Ann Wiseman, and Dad's sister, Anna Wiseman, who was a couple years older than Dad. She and her husband and family lived in Portland, but it looks like they were up in the Seattle area for this trip. Anna was also stylish, as was Aunt Lil. Larry Wiseman was her second son, and there is an older son, Bob Wiseman. Her husband, John Wiseman, worked for an insurance company in Portland his whole life. Like a child in wild anticipation, long to hear that all aboard. 7. The following scenes are, I believe, in Everett, Washington, where there were some additional cousins of the in the Holter family. This family had some little dogs. I believe that's Aunt Lil's husband. And Mary Ann. Why did I decide to roam? This is Dad, and they are enjoying these little dogs. And that sentimental journey, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey. It looks like they're heading home now and are at Snoqualmie Pass. There is one mountain that's in the picture here, kind of a triangle-shaped mountain that I have identified in my current travels over Snoqualmie Pass. And that's it. I don't know the name of it, but I'm going to look it up sometime. The following year, Dad made another trip to Portland, and here's his sister, as usual, dressed to the nines, and Marianne looks a little bit older here. These scenes are taken at the Wiseman House in North Portland. Again, some pictures of Larry Wiseman riding his bike. And of John Wiseman coming out the front door.
Those green eyes with their soft light, those eyes that promise sweet night, brings to my soul a longing.
And finally, some pictures of Bob Wiseman, their oldest son.
In dreams I seem to hold you, to find you and enfold you. Our lips meet and our hearts too, with a thrill so sublime. Those cool and limpid green eyes, a pool wherein my love lies, so deep that in my searching for happiness I fear that they will ever haunt me. All through my life they'll taunt me.
On the north edge of Portland, on the Columbia River, was a town called Vanport, for Vancouver and Portland. It was a huge shipbuilding area for World War II. Dad took these scenes that first year that he had a movie camera in Portland, and then later on we'll see some horrendous pictures of the floods of Vanport. Now we're back in Spokane, and everybody is dressed up at our house on Malin. I believe this might be our little Easter get-together. The neighbor children here are Judy and Kathy Bohr, and they live down the street from us on Malin. Their mother was a good friend to our mom and dad. Look at those beautiful little coats and hats that we are all decked out for. And John still gets his ride in the little wooden stroller. Lucky boy. Janet here is in a little more of a casual look with her little plaid coat and short skirt and probably long cotton stockings to keep her legs warm. Some nice scenes of the house. And the ever-popular Dodge. The final scenes on this roll are of the Spokane River and the falls, which I'm not sure where he took these from. Probably the south side of the river to get this angle of the falls. And the roll closes with a brief view of the Monroe Street Bridge. Springtime water on the Spokane River Falls. Just absolutely gorgeous. No, that's the Post Street Bridge above the falls, taken from the Monroe Street Bridge. That's correct. The end.